Hey everyone, thanks for checking out another tutorial. This is going to be the first part in what hopefully is a successful series on creating a bullet hell game in Godot engine. I have not worked on a bullet hell in Godot before, but it seems like a really good engine for making a game exactly like that. I don't even know if there's any other examples out there. I was kind of playing with it on my own, and I'll go ahead and run it just to show you what I have so far, and this is essentially what we're going to make in this video. I've just got this generator thing over on the left that's just spitting out a bunch of bullets. The player is over here on the right, and the whole idea behind a bullet hell game, if you're not familiar, is to avoid all of the bullets. So they come at you like hellfire, I guess. They're very difficult to avoid, and it may be difficult to see. If I get hit by one right now, I'm just printing true down there in the output console. So if I just get peppered with these bullets, then true just keeps getting printed. So I've got this collision detection going on for the bullets. Uh, in a game like this, if you get hit by a bullet, you die. Maybe in some games you have a certain amount of health before you die, but I think I'm going to pursue a pretty pure form where you can't get hit at all. The collision will need to be very tight, and we'll get to that over the course of the series. I don't know exactly how many parts in this series there will be, and I don't know how often I will post a video for it. I think this will be a pretty simple game. Everything that's running right now that you can see, I got running in, I think, less than an hour. And I'm about to go through all of this, and that'll be the foundation for the game. Everything after that will be styling and different types of enemies, different types of projectiles, different abilities for the player to use, things like that. So just to get started, I'm going to flip over from this little test project I created to something brand new, a brand new project. I am using Godot 3.2. I actually just updated today, so I don't know what version you're on or what the differences will be, but just keep that in mind. Okay, so I've started a new project. I just called it Bullet Hell Tutorial. I'll probably throw this in GitHub at some point, and when I do, I'll have a link in the description so that you can check on it and look at the code, and I'll keep it up to date over the course of the tutorials. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move some things around because there's probably a way to set your default project structure, but I do like things to be in a specific place. So I usually put scene over here on the right, and then the inspector and the node, usually on the bottom right. And then the file system, I usually click this little toggle, split mode, and then I get this down here. So now I have the files within whatever folder I'm clicked on in the file system. So hopefully you're somewhat familiar with Godot. The first thing we need to do is create a 2D scene. This will be a 2D game. So we're going to create a node 2D, and you can call it whatever you want. I guess I'll just call it game. With the style of a bullet hell game, I think we're going to be able to keep a lot of the scenes and the nodes in this game very separate. Everything will work kind of on its own. Not in this video. I'm going to keep it very simple in this one, but in future videos, I'm going to touch on the idea of maybe inheriting a lot of the properties for different enemies so that we can develop new enemies very quickly and just change their behavior very slightly. But for right now, I just want to focus on getting the collision for the projectiles working, get one generator enemy per se on the screen, shooting those bullets at a kind of a rotation pattern, and then have a player on the screen that follows the mouse. That'll be the foundation. That'll be the first part of this video. So here's our game window right now. If we run it, nothing's happening. Never been saved before. Save before running game. Let's create a scenes folder now. So I saved it. I tried to run it. It asked me to save. I'm going to place this game scene in a scenes folder and then save it. And now if we run it, nothing happens. We haven't added anything to the game. I guess the first thing we can do is create the player. So I'm going to click on scene up here and then new scene. Our root for the player, we can make it a node 2D, just like the game. I would call it player. For the player, I'm going to be using two nodes. We're going to use a sprite and we're going to use an area 2D. The area 2D is going to be used for collision with the projectiles. For the sprite, we just have to add child node, add a sprite. I always hate in tutorials when I hope everyone can see. I guess I can zoom in a little bit. So I bumped up the scale on my editor a little bit. I don't prefer it this way, but I thought it might be a little easier to see in the video, especially if people are watching on their phones. Let me just make sure everything's okay, because I don't know if I saved. Yeah, that's running, but I think I lost. Okay, so I was creating the player. So new scene, 2D scene. We'll call this node 2D player. Do what I was doing before and add the sprite. And like I was saying before, I usually hate it in tutorials when they use this default icon for the textures of different sprites, but even though I don't particularly like it, I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm just using icon.png as the texture for the player. So if we play this player scene, okay, so I want to save the player in the scenes folder as well, player scene. So if you run it, he's just kind of up here in the corner. I want to do a few things with the sprite. So we want to make him a lot smaller. One of the tenets of the bullet hell game is that our player needs to be very small in order to dodge all of the small projectiles that are filling up the screen. So if we come within the sprite down to, well, not within the sprite, within player. So within player, we're going to come down to scale, this parent node, and let's make the scale 0.2 on X and then 0.2 on Y. So we've made the player significantly smaller. He's still in the corner. Or oh, I played the project. So if I hit this little button, then we play the player screen. He's just a lot smaller. Now when we add things like a collision shape or an area, we'll be able to work off of that scaled image. So under player, in addition to sprite, we're going to hit add child node and then add area 2D. Area 2D. You'll see a little warning pop up that'll tell you exactly what you need to do, which is add a collision shape to this area 2D. The area 2D, I don't really know why they're separate, to be honest, but we have to add a collision shape to it. So collision shape 2D. Then you'll get another warning on the collision shape that says, oh, well, you've added the collision shape, but now you need a shape within the collision shape. So if we just make sure you've selected the collision shape, come down to shape, and you'll see empty. If we click on that, you can pick your shape. I'm just going to do a rectangle shape, and then you'll see it pop up here, and we can move it around. It's a little difficult to see because of the color of the sprite, which actually reminds me, let's go ahead and change, let's darken this a little bit. So if we come up to the sprite and we scroll down in the inspector to visibility, visible is great. We want it to be visible, but we can modulate it, and then we can change kind of the overall color of the player. And let's make it, I don't know, let's just make it darker. I don't really know why, but we're going to do that in a second with the projectiles anyway. So if we come back to the collision shape, we can expand it out. I don't want it to be the absolute full size of the player. It could be, maybe we will at some point, but for right now I'm just going to leave it like that. That way we can be for sure that we're colliding and we're not colliding outside of the boundaries of the player, I guess. I'm not sure, but we'll leave it like that for now. So we have area 2D, collision shape, sprite, and player. That's so we can add one more thing. So the player is going to get a script. So we hit this little plus script button on the player. We'll put it in scenes for now, but we're going to move it. Well, there's no reason not to do it now. So within the file system, I'm going to add a new folder and we're going to do scripts. And that is where I'm going to save all the scripts for all the different nodes. So if I hit this, we're actually going to save this. We're going to change this to scripts and save player.gd. So this is a script for the player. We're not going to do much in here. The only thing that I want to do is every frame, I want to make sure that the player is setting itself to the position of the mouse. So within process, we can say self.position equals get global mouse position. So wherever the mouse is, that's where we want the player to be. So if I run the player scene again, and I start moving my mouse around in here, you can see there's that little block that follows my mouse around. The mouse is a little bit in the way, and we're going to add some code to the game script when we create that will hide our cursor. So here's the game node. Let's just go ahead and do that right now. So game script, let me change this to scripts. Create. Within ready, I can't remember what it is. It's like set input. Let me go look it up real quick. So it's actually input.set mouse mode, and then they have these different options, input, mouse mode hidden. So we set that in the ready function for the game. So when we run the game, yeah, we can just run the game. The mouse should be hidden. So it's hidden. It's a little hard. I need to look into how to keep it hidden only when it's within the game window. I guess I can check, and then if it goes outside of the boundaries, then I can stop hiding and show it again. But that's not really important right now. So we've hidden it. Let's bounce back to the player, and we'll play the player scene. Oh, I don't think I selected it. Player. So this is the player scene. We'll run this one, and the mouse is not hidden. And oh, okay, so the mouse is not hidden because the player scene does not currently belong to the game. So the code in the game script is not being run. So if we come back to, how do I see? Oh, okay. I know what I'm looking for now. So this is our main game scene. We haven't added anything to it. We do want to add the player to the game because the player is always going to be a part of the game. But I don't want to create a new node. I want to click this little chain here, instance a scene file as a node. So we're going to grab the player scene after that chain, and we're going to open it within the game scene. So now the player exists as a node. Now we can run the whole game. We have the game code to hide the mouse, and we also have the player flying around. It keeps up with the mouse position. So we have the player has collision. Now all we need is an enemy that generates projectiles, and we'll have the foundation of a bullet hell game. That's pretty exciting. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the player. I'm going to create a new scene. 2D scene, no 2D, and we'll call this enemy. We'll just keep it, let's just keep it generic for now. We'll change this in a little bit. The enemy is going to need a sprite, just like the player. We're going to use the same sprite. Texture icon. I'm going to come back down to the visibility and I'm going to modulate it all the way. Just, it's going to be a black rounded rectangle essentially. So that's what the sprite's going to look like. We do need the enemy scaled just like the player. So under transform, come down here and let's scale it. Well, let's make it a little bit bigger than the player. So 0.4. And then, so we have this. We're going to save it. We're going to save enemy in the scenes folder. Let's make sure that we can instance it within the game. So we come here, we click the little chain, we grab the enemy, and now it's an instance of the game. We can change its position, say 200, 200, and then we'll just run the game. So we have the player, we have the enemy. The enemy's not currently doing anything. The basis of the idea of what we want to do is have it rotate and spit out projectiles while it's rotating. We'll go back into the enemy node. We'll give it a script. Place that in the scripts folder. First, let's just make sure that we can rotate it. So I'm going to, under process, I'm just going to call rotate 0.05. So every frame rotate by this much. And then I'm going to run this. And now our enemy is rotating. And now we need a bullet. So back to the new scene, 2D scene. We'll call it bullet. I'm keeping this very generic for now, but in the future I want to have more descriptive titles. Sprite's going to have the same texture as before, but this time it's going to be very small, and also it's still going to be black, just like the enemy. The bullet, what am I looking for? Oh, transform, and then the scale. Let's make it 0.01 or 0.1. 0.1. So it's there, it's just very small. Let's just make sure that we can spawn it now, and then we'll work on the collision. So bullet scene within scenes. So that should be the last scene that we have to add. I should have added them all maybe at the same time, but that's okay. So while we're rotating, we want to spawn this bullet scene. So in our script, we can set a reference to it. Let's say bullet node or bullet scene equals get node res. Well, we can't say get node, but we'll say load. We'll say load res. Can I do this? Res and then scenes and then bullet.tscn. I'm gonna run the scene to make sure I can do that. Okay, it didn't cause any problems, but let's see what happens when we try to load it. So I'm loading it, and then now I'm going to instantiate it. After I rotate, I'm going to create an instance. So we'll say var b equals bullet scene dot instance. We've created an instance of the bullet scene, and we want to add it to the game. So we'll say add child b, which is our instance of the bullet scene. The issue is that it's going to be hard to tell if we're adding anything because it would be hidden by the enemy. So what if we say b.position.x plus equals to 100? So we'll create it, but it'll be 100 away from this. So you can kind of see it. I don't know if it's going to show up in the video. I'm kind of following it around with the player, but there's a small bullet right there. It's actually a lot of bullets because it's adding a bullet every frame, and they're just kind of stacking on each other. They're not moving. The issue is that the bullet is keeping its position relative to the rotation of its parent because we added the bullet as a child. So what I'm going to do, instead of adding it as a child to this scene, we're actually going to add it as a child to its parent. So it's essentially going to become a sibling. So get parent.addChildB. I'm going to run it one more time just so we can see. It created it up here kind of in the top left corner because it's now being placed off of the origin of the parent of this enemy, which is the game scene itself. So what we want to do is when we create this instance, then we want to say b equals self, or b dot position equals self dot position. And now it creates kind of over here to the right. So it's based off the scene, but now it belongs to the parent. Now we can assign the rotation in kind of the same way. So we'll say b dot rotation equals self dot rotation. Okay, so it quickly forms a little circle. Again, I think this is going to be kind of hard to see, but it's actually rotating now, which is nice. We'll be able to see it a little bit better if we go into the enemy or the bullet scene. So we go into the bullet scene, and we're going to add a script to the bullet scripts. Every frame here, let's just start. We'll just start with moving. So self.position.x plus equal to 1. So every frame we're just going to move by 1. And you'll see it's kind of this jagged line because they're rotating, but they're moving. That's great. But what we do want to do is we want to move based off of our rotation. I found a pretty cool trick online, and I'll just paste it in here, where we create a vector, which is essentially x and y movement, and we rotate that vector based on the rotation of the node that we're currently in. So we can update the position and say self.position plus equal vector. It doesn't matter kind of how you start this, rotated self.rotation. So we're gonna, let's just see if it works. So now we have these projectiles kind of shooting out, and they're rotating along with the enemy, but they're not keeping their position in the rotation, if that makes sense. They're just kind of going out at a straight line based on their original rotation. So that's pretty cool. They're moving kind of fast. It's spitting out way too many, but we'll probably fix that in the next video. The important thing right now is to just get something working. So what happens if we make it rotate much faster? If we say rotate 0.1. Oh, also we can take this code out, which is, we're just kind of offsetting it to the right. Now we want the bullets to come straight from the enemy itself. So now the bullets are coming straight out, and the bullets have a little bit more spread because our enemy is rotating a little bit faster, and we can dodge these bullets. You can see the players just kind of dodging through, and I'm just keeping the mouse. It's pretty easy right now just because these bullets are moving in a very predictable pattern, and they're not moving very fast. So nothing's happening if I get hit by the bullet. So I can run all of these bullets, I can run over the enemy. Nothing really happens because I'm not checking for any collisions. We can add collision really quickly if we go into the player node or the player scene. Oh, I'm already forgetting. We've already added the area 2D. We've already added the collision shape. So all we have to do is go into the bullet scene, and we start looking for an area. So I don't know right now if this is the best way to do this, but I started playing around with Raycast 2D, and it's similar to an area and a collision shape. It's basically a line where we're checking for collision. We check to see if this line, this raycast, this ray, intersects with something that we're looking for, and if it does, then we get, we're able to detect that collision and we're able to act off of it. So let's change the raycast a little bit. We do need to enable it. I guess it starts disabled. I don't know exactly why that is, but make sure you hit the enable button. This cast 2 is telling us where is the raycast looking. Right now we're saying 0.50. If we set it to 25, it's obviously just going to get a little bit shorter. And then we can transform the position of the raycast relative to the parent bullet if we wanted to change the origin. So we could come up here and say negative 4. What if we said negative 4D? And then 40, negative 40. Put it kind of in the corner, and then up here we say 40, or I guess we double it, 80, and then 80. Something like that. Let's just get the raycast across. I'm going to do a lot more research between this video and the next on kind of best practices for using raycast. But we have one now. It's enabled, and it has a collision in this vector based on that ray's origin and cast to position. So within the code, within the bullet script, we can check in our process. I don't know how to minimize all of the stuff that's going on. Oh, I guess I can expand this. Within our process, we can check if, we'll do this little thing here, raycast 2D dot, I can't remember what the collision is colliding. Okay, so if it's colliding, then we'll just, then we'll just print out true. So we say true. Well, we can just print out a string, hit. We'll say print hit. So if the raycast node is colliding with something, then we say hit. But what is it colliding with? That's a good question. So I need to set what the raycast is supposed to hit. So I'm back on this raycast thing. Collide with. There's this field within the properties. If we expand it, right now it's only looking for bodies. We do want it to look for areas because that's what we're using in the player scene. So I can uncheck bodies because I don't care about that anymore. And I can just look for areas. I think if I run this now, the enemies are going to come. If you look at the bottom left at the output, hopefully when I hit one of these bullets, or when the bullet hits me, we'll see true, or not true, we'll see hit with an exclamation mark start to come across the output. Nothing's happening yet because I'm kind of dodging the bullets, but if I start crossing them, we see hit come across pretty quickly. So collision's working. That's pretty much it. We have a functional base for a bullet hell game. The last thing I guess I can do, I kind of forgot to do this at the beginning because I got so excited. If we come back into the game, we could, of course, just for right now, add a color rectangle in the background instead of, I guess I could set the color of the game itself, but if we just spread that out, and then I hit play again. Oh, well, I have to pull everything. Okay, well, I guess I put the color rectangle at the top, and now I play it. Everything should be on top of the rectangle. Now the projectiles are coming across. The contrast is just a little bit better with the dark gray, or without the dark gray and with kind of a white background. But the same effect, everything's working. If I get hit, it says hit. And then we could base the game's functions off of that, which in a bullet hell would typically be you lose. The player got hit by the bullet. This has been pretty fun to work on. I don't think it took that long to get the foundation working. I think this could be a pretty cool series, especially if I stick with it and can figure out a lot of cool features to add and kind of flesh this out into an actual game. I was inspired aesthetically, I guess. I knew I was going to do kind of a black and white bullet hell, very minimalist. So I started looking for examples that currently existed just to make sure I wasn't stepping on anyone's toes. There is one of them out there, and I'll put a link in the description to that game just because I don't want it to seem like I'm copying someone's game or anything. It's already out there. I haven't played it. It seems fun, but I'm definitely not advertising for it. But that link will be in the description just for credit to the person that worked on that. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you learned something new or you're excited about this bullet hell game, remember to hit the subscribe button. That would really help. I'm loving making the videos. I have a lot of fun, and I hope you do too. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.